is the Rangers Journal Night.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday night's edition of the Rangers Journal. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host for this evening. We are currently 3 days on from the humiliation at the hands of Hearts, and let's be honest, guys, the pain hasn't got any better over the last few days. Tonight, we're going to be sitting talking about potentially what happens in the hot seat if, as expected, our head coach has moved on. And we've got three incredible gentlemen here to talk it through with us. And we'll have a look at what candidates potentially may be coming on board. And we'll just do all chat about Rangers, as we always do. So first up tonight, John, how are you feeling after Saturday? Have you calmed down a little bit, mate?
Evening, Chris. Just about, I think. I think anger is taking a backseat these days for just frustration and disappointment. And here we go again. And that's certainly how Saturday felt off. I've seen this movie many times before over the last 3-4 seasons. So yeah, hoping that this week brings some better news in the manager front, and this conversation that we're about to have tonight becomes very worthwhile and very much something that everybody's talking about.
Absolutely. Richard, welcome. Good to see you again, mate. How are you feeling after Saturday, which was obviously a tough one for everyone, and 3 days on from this, and nothing's really changed behind the scenes, really?
No, I'm okay. Doing well, mate. Not too bad. Sort of had time to digest everything, sort of go over it in my head and gather my thoughts about it all, but pretty much just feeling the same way as every Rangers fan is right now, I think.
Absolutely, mate. And Ross, this is the first time I've been on with you, big guys. Welcome. Great to be on with you, mate. Thanks. How are you feeling, pal?
Yeah, fine. I fortunately was at a wedding on Saturday, so I couldn't make the game, but by all accounts, it was as toxic as Cybrooks has ever been, and I'm not surprised. He might not be away yet, but he's a dead man walking, and it's going to happen. So I think this is a worthwhile conversation because it's going to be very topical very soon.
Absolutely. And I think, James, that's the challenge, isn't it? I think if we'd said on Saturday night we would be sitting here and he's still in the hot seat, I think people would have laughed us out the door thinking we're off our heads with it. But here we are, 3 days on, and he's still there, and nothing has changed behind the scenes. However, we're hearing some snippets tonight in the media that there could potentially be talking around some candidates behind the scenes, which is an interesting development. But you would expect that from Rangers in terms of getting some candidates ready just in case something happens. But I think we're all probably in the same boat that it is now just a case of whatever happens next is probably going to be him walking out the door. Obviously, we've got a big game on Saturday. Before we go into the manager discussion, we've got a big game on Saturday coming up, and everyone's got a feeling of where it's at this moment in time in terms of what we think may happen. John, just before we jump into the manager candidates and talk through that, what's your thoughts for Saturday? Can you see it any better?
No, I can't. I think the whole atmosphere around the club just now is toxic. It's just not a nice place to be Saturday. I can't remember in my 35 years of going to Ibrox ever experiencing anything like that towards a manager or even just any individual on the park.
Yeah.
I'm not confident going into Saturday that we're going to be able to do anything. He's had 12 weeks now to try and implement things and get things changing. I don't see what you can do in 7 days from Saturday there. So I've made the decision that I'm not going to be going on Saturday. CCS money's come out. I don't think it's right. And not looking forward to how that game's going to go.
Absolutely agree. And I'm the same as you, John. I've CCS money would have come out, and it's just one where I'm just at that stage now where I think it's better off staying in the house and watching it behind the city. I think that's probably the best way at this moment in time. So I fully agree with you in that one bit. Richard, what's your thoughts for Saturday coming just before we get into the manager stuff? And can you see anything changes? Do you think the trip to Loch Lomond and the skinny dipping in the water and the hiking in the Highlands, do you think that's going to have made any major difference for this weekend coming?
I very much doubt it, to be honest. And it's something that I've been thinking over the last couple of days. I'm actually really glad that we've got Hibs in the next round. Now, it's a League Cup game. We could quite have easily have had Partick Thistle and, had a victory and papered over the cracks for another couple of weeks. But this is a test against arguably the fourth best team in the league. So effectively you could call it, another league game. So with the with the owners coming over this week, they can actually see what we're up against, and losing this game is effectively just another defeat in the league. You know, it's who we're up against. It's one of our biggest, I don't want to say rivals, but one of the biggest challenges within the league itself. So that's shown to the board, to Patrick Stewart, to Thelwell, exactly where we are. So another failure here is just another perfect example of where we're failing. So I'm quite glad that it's Hibs. I wasn't, to be, when we first got it. I would have preferred one of the easier ones until we get to the latter stages, but I'm really glad it is now that we've got Hibs. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be the same old stories we saw last week. I say unfortunately, but at the same time, if we want to change, we need to lose.
Yeah.
You know, as sad as that is, and as much as I don't want my team to lose, but if we want change, that's what is going to need to happen, and I think it probably will.
I think that's everyone's concern, Richard, isn't it? The fact that we're sitting here saying that at defeat, you should expect them to see them go. And people are then sitting in that position where you don't want to see a team get beat, but at the same time, we know this can't go any longer, and possibly a win, does that just then carry it on even longer? That's obviously one of the discussions we'll get into tonight. So, but I honestly am the same as you, Richard. I can't believe we're in that position at the moment in terms of thinking we really don't want him here for another game, and a potential win maybe does that, and that's the challenge for us at the moment.
Yeah, the only silver lining, just to add up, is that it is a League Cup that we're going to lose. We're going to be out of the cup, and it's not another league defeat where we're falling further behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ross, what's your thoughts for this weekend? It's a big game, probably the biggest game that we've had in a long time, obviously considering some of the competitions we've been in and the Club Bruges game, etc. Is this a potential turning point? Can you see any way back from if he gets a good result this weekend?
I don't personally. I think if he does get a good result, one, will be pleasantly surprised, which in itself is an awful statement to make at this stage in the season. And I think it's just going to kick the can further along the road if he does get a result, because I said the other day on the group chat, I think he's now in the position where, see if he wins the next 15 games, he'll keep in a job. See when he drops points in the 16th, everybody will go, see, he's not got a clue. Then we'll be back to square one. We're at that stage now. And like you say, you're in that horrible position where you want Rangers to win, but you're looking at it going, see if he does get put out, at least it would see the trigger be pulled a lot sooner. And I think it will. I think if he doesn't win on Saturday, he's done. But yeah, no, I'm not confident at all. And for the attendance, I think we'll be lucky if there's 25,000 there.
Absolutely. So again, that's going to be the tough one, isn't it? Because you want to back the team, support the team, and make sure the players are not getting impacted by it. But we can't really see any other way out at the moment, because this is the only way out. If he loses another game, he's got to go. And I think the challenging thing for most fans this week has been the fact that the board have come out and backed him through the media. Obviously, we'd heard some rumours on Saturday night, potentially going, then on Sunday you hear the noise that actually he's been supported by the board again, and it's just a message of disbelief at that point in time when you start to hear that. And then the fact we're still here tonight and nothing has changed, I think it's beyond belief at the moment. I think fans are rightly concerned about what's going to happen. I think for me, the worry for me is how toxic does it get on Saturday. That's the worry for me, is we've seen how toxic it was on Saturday there. If it gets to this Saturday and he's still there and the result doesn't go our way, it's how toxic does it get before change needs to happen. And I think that's the big concern for most. Before we get into the discussion, folks, I just want to comment. I know there's lots of people tuning in at the moment, so thank you for tuning in, folks. Lots of comments coming in, so we'll try and get some of the comments up on the board. Please join in the discussion. It's great seeing some of the discussions already that I've been having around potential managers. So please, if you can, keep putting your comments in. Please join in, and we'll get across some of those comments as well. Also, please like and subscribe, folks, if you can. It will help the channel massively if you can do that. So like and subscribe going forward. John, can I kick off with yourself tonight then, mate? We obviously know the situation. We know that Martin wasn't the guy that 99.9% of the fans wanted. He's absolutely admitted that himself in the press conference on Saturday. Fans didn't want him in the first place. Who is in a situation just now? Because it looked as if there was a thorough process done from Patrick Stewart and the board. And when you find out that Russell Martin was the outstanding candidate that was mentioned, it was a feeling of shock and horror, I think, for most of the Rangers fans. Was he genuinely the right candidate, or in your mind, who would be the other candidates that you think could be Rangers manager at this moment in time?
At the time, I don't see how he was, or I think he was maybe their outstanding candidate because of the timeframes around it. I got the feeling that the takeover being announced, I think Friday, the Sunday, Monday with Farewell coming in, Coppin departing, Purdy coming in, and then by Thursday, Russell Martin's appointed. The timelines just didn't seem to fit, and it felt as if this has just got very rushed at the end. Patrick Stewart has possibly had a little list of people who said, yep, think these guys are quite good. Farewell's went, oh, yep, they've worked in the Premier League, I know him. And similar to so many of the signings we've seen, it's just kind of been an appointment of convenience that went, we kind of know him, we think this could work here, and that's who we go with. I don't think this 7 interviews and things like that, I can't believe that happened. I really can't. I've been interviewing somebody in my own job just now, and after 2 interviews, I know it's the right person, and we're going to go ahead with that person. You shouldn't need 7 interviews. So,
absolutely
agree. For me, it's the same candidate it should have been in the summer. It's the same candidate it should have been in October 23, and that is Kevin Muscat. He's been sitting under our nose all that time. He's the ideal candidate in terms of the success he's had as a manager, the style he wants to play as a manager. He ticks all the boxes. So that kind of, I think the people I'm put forward to talk about tonight, the kind of key thing I put was sustained success. So not managers who maybe won 1 or 2 cups or maybe a 1 league title here, somebody who has won it in different countries, different circumstances, and he's done it time and time again.
Yeah.
Kevin Muscat for me has also been here. He's been a player, played in a treble winning team, played in a dressing room with Barry Ferguson, he played under a manager in Alan McLeish. That's a dressing room and an environment who says he's going to get what this is all about. He understands the demands of this club. So although he's not been in the UK as a manager, he understands what we are. And that attacking football, that on the front foot, it's not about just keeping possession for possession's sake. It's getting forward, getting goals. Now, his teams score a lot of goals. They also concede a lot of goals. They're not exactly watertight at the back. So there is some of the cons there. Yeah, that kind of European experience he'd have failed. Kind of time in Belgium didn't work out for him for different reasons. But I think he is the guy. He has the character. He's a hard man. He's not somebody who's going to take any nonsense from people. So yeah, I think he's the outstanding candidate. I've wanted him since we talked about him when Clement came in. I just want us to go and get it done. That's simple as that. I think he'd be great for us. And I was on one of the strategy pods last week. One of the things I said was there's a real lack of medals and winners in our coaching team. And I think that's why as a manager, we need to go after somebody who's won things. Somebody who sits and says, look, I'm going to take you here. I'm going to take you on this tactical style, this way of playing. And look, I've got the medals to back it up that says it works. So follow me and we'll do this.
Yeah. I think, John, I wouldn't argue with you on that one. I think Kevin Muscat for me would be a cracking manager for Rangers. I think you look at the pros and the cons that the team have pulled together in terms of the information for us. He seems to win wherever he goes at the moment at this point in time. The titles, look at where he's been in Australia, Japan and China and what the success he's had over there. The success is fantastic, and let's be honest, that success doesn't come easy for him over in those leagues. So I think I'd be an absolute agreement. I think if Rangers were to bring Kevin Muscat out the woodworks and bring him in just now, I think he would get a real thumbs up for a lot of them. One thing is he is known for playing his attacking football, which is fantastic as well. There is obviously the challenge of the opposite side of that, which is his teams do tend to leak quite a lot of goals on the opposite side of it. But I think looking at him, as you said, he knows what this is about. He's been here before. He's played with the likes of Barry Ferguson, been in Alan McLeish's squad, and he'd be somebody who would get it and pick it up straight away. You would imagine. Would you think that would be a big benefit for any of the Rangers managers coming in, the fact that they get it? Somebody like, as we'll probably touch on, Barry Ferguson, who came in last season and there's probably rights or wrongs of how Barry did and what happened there. But is it knowing the league and knowing the club? Is that the benefit that we need, John, from a type of manager like Kevin Muscat?
I don't think it's the only thing we need. I think it's a help. I think if you can find somebody with that, it's an extra tick in a box. It's not the key thing. What I think for somebody like Muscat and having been here is this should hopefully speed up that onboarding for him and coming in straight away. He's not into unfamiliar surroundings. He would know how to get Ibrox, straight off the plane. He could do it himself. So it's that kind of thing of might not know the league right now, might not understand the complexities of Scottish football right now, but he's shown moving around all these different countries, he can learn it quickly. He's not went to China, Japan and taken 2 or 3 seasons to win a league. He's got it pretty quickly, and he's went through into teams that haven't been winning in the immediate, you're not taking over successful teams.
Yeah.
I think having somebody that knows it is a great benefit, not the key thing. Somebody who's got a good coach, got good winning mentality, understands how to bring players along with him. What we're seeing with Russell Martin just now is he's not taking the players with him. He's not communicating what he's trying to do. And if you can get somebody there who can do that and is passionate about it and is a big character like I think Kevin Muscat would be, all the better.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great shout. I think he's a cracker on that one. I think, it would tick a lot of boxes for me in that one. And John, I know we'll have a second one which we'll come to later on in this one. I just want to come on to Richard next on Kevin Muscat at the moment, just really quickly. You see in the graphic, the reputation, he's got a reputation as a hard man. And as it's quite clearly said in there, that could alienate some certain players. Based on the squad we've got at this moment in time, would he be the type of manager who could come in and get something from them, or is he going to, as it says, potentially alienate the players that are there? Are they hard enough for him? Essentially, is my point on that one, John. Richard.
I think they're just going to have to be. To be honest, you can't tell me that we're just going to have to get a manager to suit the players that we've got now. We need the manager that's going to suit the club. And I think the players are just going to have to adapt to whoever we bring in. And whether or not we bring in somebody like Muscat, who's more aggressive in his personality and the way that he motivates his team, they're going to have to suck it up. And I don't believe it's probably the first time in their career where they've had somebody that shows them a bit of tough love. And it's a little bit more of a disciplinarian. I'm sure they have at some point in their career. But if they don't like it, then they won't be in the team. Quite as simple as that. So I don't really think it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, fair enough. Just stay with yourself then, Richard, before we come on to Ross next. Obviously, Kevin Muscat is one of the names that John said, and a lot of fans have picked Kevin Muscat. Richard is somebody they'd like to see take over. Who would be your first ideal candidate that you think Rangers could probably get in just now if they were partnering with Russell Martin and trying to get someone in new? Who would you want to see come in the door first of all? For yourself, Richard, sorry.
I thought you said Ross, sorry. So mine is probably one that's going to divide a lot of opinion, but I think it's going to be best man for the job if we're able to get him, and that's Derek McInnes. Now, there's probably groans straight away as soon as I said that, and maybe even people turning off, but we need somebody that can come into the club and make change now. Now, he's not going to change the players, right? But we need somebody that's going to be able to know our league inside out, know the demands of the club straight away, and have a good idea of the players that's already in the building. A lot of the managers that are currently with clubs, Muscat, for example, and stuff like that, they're not going to have as good an understanding. McInnes has scouted us clearly. He's watched some of our players for years. He's tweaked his tactics to defeat us. And, his teams, generally, they're always well organised, competitive, hard-working, and disciplined, which is exactly what we need to turn around this season. So I know the chances are of Hearts even letting him go is going to be highly unlikely. But if you're asking me to pick number one, if money was no option, and we can get him in the door tomorrow, this would be my first pick. You've got the pros and cons all there. I know this stuff happened previously with him, but point on that, he's quite often said that he's got a story to tell about that. He had a discussion with Walter Smith, who seemed to be a bit of a sort of mentor, father figure for him when he started out in management. I like the way that a lot of people have leaned on Sir Alex. It seemed like he leaned on Walter Smith. So he said he's got a story to tell there. So I think there's more to it than him just turning down a job for whatever reason. And it looked like it was probably the right decision for him to do it. But for all those things, his ability, clearly he's, punched above his weight pretty much at most clubs he's been to. Right? And finishing the runners-up multiple times, the start that he's made with Hearts, although they've had more money, but it's clear that he can work within the boundaries set by the board. This would be my number one.
It's a great shout, Richard. I think I've just brought up another a slide there, and some of the guys have pulled together for us, which is fantastic. So big shout out to the guys for the tactics and things of pulling all this together. Looking at this, obviously this season, 4 wins, draw, no defeats, 12 goals scored, 6 goals conceded. You can see how obviously they're ranking compared to everyone else. They're top of the table at the moment, or joint top of the table at this point in time. Does the Rangers fans accept Derek McInnes if that was the one, Richard? Would they accept Derek McInnes coming in, especially after turning down potentially previously when he was Aberdeen? I think he had the chance to come in, and the feeling was he turned us down. Would that be something the Rangers fans would accept for McInnes coming back in?
I don't think he'd be 100% accepted, but I think there'd be a lot more. And even just by looking at the comments right now, there'd be a lot more in favour than what there was of Russell Martin when he came in. And to be quite honest, the way as fickle as football fans are, starting off with a few wins, people soon forget. I know the history and stuff like that, but Kenny Miller played for Celtic and we soon accepted him back as soon as he started scoring goals. All right, so I don't really think that's going to be a huge issue. It's only going to be an issue if he, does poorly and we're not getting the wins, then we'll use that against him. So as much as I don't think he'd be the obvious candidate for 100% of the fans, and I don't think there is an obvious candidate that everybody's, behind, but I definitely think he's going to be the best to improve our position right now, currently. It might not be the best for the long-term future. What I know is what the board want in the long term for the next 2 or 3 years to stabilise, to get ourselves back competing in the league, to give ourselves a better structure and approach with the style of play that we play. In order to get the players in that they want to do long term, we need to do something short term. And Dennis ticks all those boxes and knows everything inside out that we need to improve this league position.
Absolutely. And Richard, I'll be honest, I don't think many can disagree with you on that one. I think he absolutely does. I think Derek McInnes has been a steady hand wherever he's went, and he's improved teams wherever he's went as well. So I don't think anyone could disagree in that sense of it. I think some of the stats speak for themselves, as we said, Richard, which would be really good. And I think the fact of, look, he's brought in a lot of new players this season as well at Hearts. Some really, really cracking players at Hearts. Some impressed really well on Saturday. So he knows a player. Again, you got to question, is that the analytics bringing those players in, or is that the scouting team that he's got around him? What could that be? But Derek McInnes, you can see he's worked with it and it's working well so far. So I think it would be an absolute fantastic shout as well. So yeah, I couldn't see that one going the other way. I think it would be anything but
on that,
negative on that one.
To add to what you're saying, even if it's not his picks and it's on the analytical side, and I'm sure he probably does have a veto on things, but if he's not solely picking the players, he's getting them to play. So even if they're not, he's shooting the style, it seems to be shooting the style around the players that he's got. Whereas that's all what we're moaning about Russell Martin. He's trying to make these players fit into his style of play, which clearly isn't working. Whereas having a manager that's going to get the best out of the team and making the players play that they're best suited to, that's what we need. That's what's going to change the situation for us this season.
Absolutely. No, look, great shout, and Richard, we'll come on to your second pick very shortly, and we'll come back down to that again. I just want to come on to Ross just before Ross will come to your pick for the manager's wife. Derek McInnes, obviously you've heard what Richard said, you've seen some of the comments that are coming in. Does Hearts let him go if Rangers make the lunge for Derek McInnes? Is that something you could see happening at all?
I think they probably would, and I think I agree that he would split opinion. I don't think he would have fans down cartwheels outside the main entrance Ibrox, but I think he has over his career really. He's built up a reputation as being a solid, respectable, effective Scottish coach, and I think he would be all right with us. He would be a safe option, and he would do certainly with a bit sitting 10th after 5 games. So I think it would be a decent option, but I think we should maybe be aiming a wee bit higher. But if he was to get it, I certainly wouldn't be as underwhelmed as I would have been maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think someone said, didn't it? Could he potentially have something? Someone said in one of the comments, could he potentially have something in his contract if Rangers were to come calling? That could be something that's there. We just don't know. Obviously, we're speculating at that point, but I wouldn't be surprised, Ross, if that was the case. He had something there, and that if Rangers were to come calling, based on the fact that it is the perceived bigger club and all the stuff that goes with it, then we maybe want to take it on. And looking at the situation behind the scenes, you would have to expect, Ross, that he would probably see the situation behind the scenes being more stable this time around compared to what was on offer the last time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I know we're moaning about how we're obviously not playing well just now and we want rid of the manager, but off the field we're completely at another level to what we were. And when was it, 2017, when Caixinha left? We were a basket case then. It was what we lost from one disaster to the next. I think we're a different place now. We're run a lot more professionally. So I think he would take it now, but we were definitely a more attractive option than we were back then.
Absolutely. Ross, before we come on to one of your picks on this one, I just want to say the comments that I can remember, guys, fantastic. Thank you. Keep posting some of your comments in. We're trying to get them up as much as possible on here. Number of people watching as well, fantastic. Keep hitting that like and subscribe button, and please share anything you're watching at the moment, guys. So thank you for your continued support on that one. Ross, just back to yourself then. Same question for as John and Richard got. What would be your number one pick at this moment in time for replacement of Russell Martin as head coach?
Well, similar to what Richard had said regarding Derek McInnes, my pick, my favoured option, somebody who also knows the Scottish game and knows the club. And for me, it would be someone who's a bit more an obvious choice, and that's Steven Gerrard. Again, I think he would split opinion, similar to McInnes, but for me, is the obvious candidate. I don't want to use the cliche that he knows the club and he gets it, but he does. And the impact he made when he came in took us, and talked about in terms of ownership being another level now, he took us to another level on the park as soon as it came in. I know we went a couple of years without winning a trophy, but there was incremental improvements every single season. You could see what he was trying to build, and the culmination of that was the unbeaten league winning season. Gave us some respect back in Europe. Basically stopped us being a joke, which is what we were when he came in. So I think the question should be asked to him again. The only thing I would say is he would need to have a good assistant with him, I think, like a Michael Beale, but not Michael Beale, for obvious reasons.
Sorry, I couldn't get off the mute button there, Ross. Apologies. Just on that one, you were saying about Michael Beale. That's a really good shout, because I think when Gerrard was here the first time, a lot of people would probably argue that a lot of the success was down to the backroom staff that he had around him. Not just Michael Beale, but the other ones that came with that, your Gary Max, etc., and stuff like that. Would the fans accept a Michael Beale back again with Steven Gerrard, do you think, if he was to come in with that situation with Michael Beale and what happened? Would that all be put aside for the fact that it's Steven Gerrard coming back? Or, as you say, would he need to come in? We spoke before about potentials like Kevin Thompson and Stephen Davis. I think Jermaine Defoe's name was thrown about a few times last week as well on that. Does he come in with a similar backroom team, do you think? Or would they bring a whole new backroom team with him this time round?
I think a similar backroom team would be accepted. The likes of Tom Culshaw, Gary McAllister, they would be accepted for, like I said, for obvious reasons. It can't be Michael Beale. The first couple of bad results, it would be him that gets it. I think too much damage was done when Beale was the manager in his own right, and I think he's the type of guy whose ego wouldn't let him take that step down and have to come back as a level below where he was when he left. So I think some of these shouts are good. Kevin Thompson, Stephen Davis, Jermaine Defoe, would be happy with them. But for me, I'm not a fan of Michael Beale fans. I think it would be a bad move to take him back. I don't think it would be realistic, because, like I said, I don't think his ego would let him accept that.
Absolutely. And just sticking with Gerrard at the moment, obviously there was a lot of talk, a lot of people who said on social media and things Gerrard was the first pick the last time when Martin came in. Obviously, it didn't happen for whatever reason, and we've heard the rumours of why it's not happened. We're only, 12 weeks down the line now? Roughly that, 12, 13 weeks down the line. Does that situation change, Ross? Can you see massive things changing in the background on this one? Or has Gerrard maybe looked at this and thought they've backed the manager with really good players, they've brought some really good players in, there's a lot of money there that's been spent on it, there's probably going to be more money spent in January. I want to take this. How do you see it from that perspective in terms of what Gerrard's thinking?
Well, I think, like you said, the rumours in the summer that he himself was the number one choice and turned it down, but there's also been rumours that he got word he wasn't getting it and Martin was getting it, so he quickly got his people to put out that he was no longer in the running. So I don't know what's true out of those two scenarios, but if he was willing to take it, he would be someone that I think we should definitely ask the question to. And yeah, like you said about the squad, I think it's a good squad that's not performing as well as it could with the right manager, and I think he would be that right manager. He would come in as a figurehead like he was the first time. He would instantly command the respect that clearly isn't there for Russell Martin. And I think we would see an instant improvement in results and performances and just an atmosphere around the club, around the stadium. I think he would bring that feel-good factor back and turn it on its head where we've been so far.
Absolutely. And I think, Ross, I think for me, I was always looking at the candidates who were the previous time. My preference was always Gerrard. I've got another candidate which I'll probably come on to in a wee second, and I'll put a name out to there to use in a wee second, gents. But for me, Gerrard was the main one. If you can get a new one back in, it was Gerrard was the main one. It's quite simply, as you said earlier on, Ross, you could see that progression year on year. It wasn't as if we were staying stagnated year on year. We were progressing. He got us the league title that we all wanted and we all needed. And he got it at one of the toughest times, which was incredible. And then obviously the season after that, he didn't really get backed from the board. And I think that's obviously one of the factors in why he went down south to Villa as well. So I think he's got unfinished business. And I think if you were to put it out there to Gerrard, I think he would be more than willing to come back. Obviously, it depends on some of the personal situation that he's got as well, but you would hope he'd want to come back and finish what he started and maybe take us on to that wee bit more success, definitely. And Ross, we'll come on to you again for your second one in a few minutes. Before we come on to your second one, I just want to come to John. John, Steven Gerrard, is he a man that you would like to see back at Ibrox and being in the main hot seat?
I'm not overly a fan of going back the way. I wouldn't argue with it if we got to next Monday and the owner said Russell Martin's out the door and we've got Gerrard in. I would say that if he's going to bring Beale back, now's probably the time to do it, because if you're sitting saying we're going to replace Russell Martin, his team, and Beale's in there, I think it goes under the radar a little bit more than what it might have done in the summer. So I wouldn't be rushing into it just because I'm not a fan of going back the way. I know some of the comments that are going to come back here, and people will say, well, we went back to Walter. Steven Gerrard is not Walter Smith. And I think we kind of sometimes get lost in those things. Walter is on a pedestal all to himself. And he was a one of a kind, the greatest Rangers manager of my lifetime and probably all of our lifetimes. Because he done it doesn't necessarily mean somebody else can do it. So I wouldn't argue against it for Hampden Monday, I'll put it that way.
Fair play. It's a great show, John. I think a lot of fans, I've spoken to a lot of fans as well, and one of the things they'll say is, why are we turning back the way? Why do we want to go back the way again? And I think that's always the big challenge, is why do you go back? I think a lot of fans will also say there is unfinished business with Steven Gerrard there, and that's why they would like to see him back in the hot seat again, just to try and finish what he started and see where we end up with it. But it comes at a risk because you potentially wouldn't have the same backroom staff again as what you had in the previous day. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens obviously next in terms of the next candidates and whether his name's back in there again. I think the fact that bookies had stopped taking bets on him previously showed how close it was. So you never know. That could be a conversation that they're going to look at again going forward. I'm going to throw a name out there to these guys. I said it in the podcast on Sunday, I think it was. I and I said, and a lot of people criticised me for it. A lot of people didn't like the name because of who I was given with it. My view on this one was, and I'll put the name in, as Barry Ferguson. Was one of the guys that I wanted to look at. I think Barry and himself didn't have a lot to play with, especially considering what they came off of with Clermont and the Queen's Park games and things like that. But I thought Barry Ferguson, for me, brought the passion and the heart that Rangers needed at the time. And I just felt to myself, with a little bit of money getting thrown behind it, he may be able to take Rangers forward a little bit. And rightly so, a few people commented on Sunday and said, no chance, that's not the guy. Looking at this, and I'd like to get all your 3 points on this one, so I'll come to yourself, John, first of all, before I go to Richard and Ross. But Barry Ferguson, would he be someone that you would like to see back with a bit of money, bit of time, obviously more time than what he had, and do you think he could do a job for Rangers?
No. Probably straight to the point with that one. I didn't see it. I think there was a couple of good results in there last season, but we didn't pick up in the way that we hoped we would. I didn't see enough to say to me that this was a long-term solution for a manager who could take us forward. And it would no, just not for me. I think if you've got a Steven Gerrard there, I think you're looking at Steven Gerrard before you're looking at a Barry Ferguson, if you're weighing those two options up. So it wouldn't be one I'd be behind, that's for sure.
No, fair enough. And I think, John, look, that's the good thing about this, is everyone's got opinions on it, and it's good to hear those opinions, because some have got the opinion they want them back, some are like, no, let's not go there and let's try something else. So I totally get it, and you're absolutely spot on with some of the things you're saying. And looking at the cons on it, the challenge for me was he won the big games, but it was those games he couldn't get the players up for. Similar to what's happening at the moment, the players are not getting up for it. Would that still be the same with this squad? That's where my concern became in at that point in time as well, John. So no, I take your point on that one. Richard, for you, Barry, would he be someone that you would want to see given that opportunity if he was the next man there?
He wouldn't be my first choice, but I wouldn't be totally against it. I'm not sure that I'd want him to be, and this would be perhaps a bit unfair, want him to be the manager on a 2-3 year contract. I think if we appoint him, it's going to be because we need somebody in the door immediately before the season completely gets away from us. And it gives him an opportunity, perhaps a season or to the remainder of the season, to see what he can do, and gives the board time, like we've done before, to see whether or not he can crack it, or if we get somebody else in, there's somebody else. So I wouldn't be totally against it. I think going to the comments, like what you said, I don't think it was a case of, well, last season he couldn't get some of the players up for the games. I think that was just a stigma from last season. And this season, I don't think we've got that problem, in the sense of, I think our players are up for it. I just think they don't know, or they can't play the way Russell Martin wants to play. So I think Barry Ferguson will be able to get, more of a tune out of these players than what Russell Martin can. I think he'll go probably back to, well, you can see a more direct approach to the games and play the way the players and we want to play, and what we can see the way the players want to play. So you're asking me, would I be totally against it? No, and this probably is unfair to him, but I don't think it'd be the long-term answer for the club or for the board.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be so, Richard, again, it's some really good points you're making. I wouldn't be adverse to that either, those points you make, because would he be the longer term plan? I don't think he would be the longer term plan at the moment. However, I think my view on this one is he the guy who could take you 12, 18 months down the line, get you that bit of stability back, maybe get a trophy under the belt, whether that's Cup or the league or whatever it may be, and really just get the passion back into Rangers again. I think would be the thing for me. Unite the fan base. I think that was one thing that, regardless of the results, he was able to unite the fan base when he was here, and that short term that he had. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what would come next with him. Ross, what's your feelings on Barry? Would that be something that you would be open to seeing, or do you think it's a complete no-no and we need to look elsewhere?
I think it's a weird one with Barry Ferguson. When he was here for that short space of time towards the end of last season, he did win a couple of big games. Fenerbahce away was memorable, and the win at Parkhead. But the rest of it, I didn't think was great. It is a weird one, and I'm kind of on the fence with it. I want him, if that makes sense, because he's Barry Ferguson, so you want him to be a success, and you want him to be doing well with Rangers, ideally. But
Yeah.
if it really came to it, I would probably side with John and say no. I don't think I've seen enough either to think. Similar to McInnes, I wouldn't be absolutely raging if he got it, but nor would I be really excited about the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are saying as well, Ross, that you can see in the comments, it was one of those ones where it was when Barry was in charge, you were always losing at least 2 goals a game. Remember, that was the big challenge.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember the stats, but did we not go 4 or 5 games or something? We went 2-0 down in all the games, and we had to come back and fight every time. So I would like to see that again. Put it that way, that would be a really tough one. But I think even just on that first set of candidates we looked at there, I think it just shows you the diverse difference that everyone's got and the opinions that everyone has on it. I think there's some really good names in there. I would hope that Rangers would look at these as well. And as I said earlier on, the talk at the moment is they're looking at other candidates. They're looking at potentially what's around the corner. And I don't think Thelwell would be doing his job properly if he didn't do that, in the sense of looking at that now, because he knows what's coming. They can see what's coming. So that would be the sporting director's job, to look and see what's next down the line. Hopefully he's watching here tonight and he picks up some of these candidates and they look at them, and the tactics guys have given some of the comments on it and does some of his job for him. So hopefully that would be something that gets out of this. John, come back to yourself, mate. You gave us one of the candidates. I believe you're potentially a second candidate you would think would be good for Rangers if we couldn't get that one. Talk us through your second one, please, mate.
See, just before that, see the first 3 candidates. I don't know if anybody else thought this, but there's a very similar nature to them in terms of their style and their personality. They hold themselves well. They kind of have a bit of they have a bit of something about them in terms of, we're talking about Walter Smith and people like that. There is a similarity there between Muscat, McInnes, Gerrard. They're very different in terms of their personality and approach to Russell Martin. So I think we've all kind of followed a similar theme with those first choice. I think there's definitely back to that manager more than a head coach. I think that's probably one thing I would pick up on.
So it's a good shout. John, can I ask you then, just sticking on that one? And some people, the reason I want to ask this question, and I'll open it up to Richard and Ross as well, to come in on this. Is it the title that's probably concerning some fans from head coach to manager? Because Rangers have always been used to manager as the title of it. Does the title make any difference at the moment, in your opinion, John? And does the title make any difference to the manager, in essence? Because in the past, we've always had that manager type one where they've been the focal point. They've always had that, I am the manager of Rangers Football Club, whereas right now it's the head coach. Has that made any difference for Russell Martin? And does that make a difference to any manager going forward, do you think?
I think it depends in terms of how much responsibility they've got and where they draw that line in the background. That we don't really know where that line is. It doesn't bother me in terms of manager or head coach, but I think for those 3 candidates that we looked at, they would be managers who would lead from the front. They could take a bit more onus on, whereas I don't feel Russell Martin as a character has that. He doesn't have that. I'm going to lead you. I'm going to take you by the scruff of the neck and I'm going to take you on this journey. He's kind of, he doesn't have that personality. Those 3 guys, they're managers. They're sitting saying, right, here's what we're done. Here's how we're going to do it. And we're going to go and get it done. And I think that's just not there with Martin. Yeah,
absolutely. I would agree with you, John, on that one wholeheartedly. He's not one that fills you with that confidence that he is going to go and lead it, I think, is the big one. That's why I wanted to ask that question, just to see. Richard, what about yourself in that question then? Does the head coach title or does manager title, does that make a difference in today's football, in today's day and age? Or does players just not look at that and whoever is the head guy is the head guy at that point? What do you think of the title side of things?
I don't really think it makes a difference in whether or not the players care or not. At the end of the day, whoever that individual is, whether it be called the head coach or the manager, he's the one that picks a team. So if players want to moan about it, he's the one that's going to tell you you're on the bench, regardless of what his title is. Yeah. What I would say is that you probably need more of a manager at Rangers, but you still need a coach that knows what he's doing. So Gerrard took on the mantle of manager and had his coaches below him who knew what he was doing. But to go on to John's point when he said about the difference between the 3, the one thing about that you're right in what you're saying, but there's one individual that stands out straight away is Gerrard, and the fact that he would immediately command respect more than Ferguson and more than Muscat would in the dressing room. And one thing you can say right now is those issues that has been going on with Raskin, guarantee you they would not be happening with Steven Gerrard. If a midfielder of Steven Gerrard quality is telling you this is what I'm expecting you, this is what you need to do, and here's the reason why.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any player or certainly any midfielder in our squad that's going to argue back with them, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's all right in all you're saying, but that's one thing that Steven Gerrard has above the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. I think you're right. I think looking at that, Raskin, best player in the team, and obviously we don't know what's happened behind the scenes, and the club's not really releasing much detail, which probably is a big frustration for a lot of people at the moment because you don't know the detail behind it. We don't know what's going on there. On that one, Ross, what's your take on the situation from a presence point of view? Russell Martin doesn't seem to tick the boxes for people. People will argue he's got a better, or he had a better record than Gerrard, because Gerrard came in from the 19s and didn't have a management career out with that. So on paper, Martin looks to be more of the better candidate. But looking at Martin overall, does he give you that strength and feeling and sense that he's going to go and lead this club and take this club on? Obviously, given what you've seen so far in the last 5 games or so, we'd probably tell you no, but would he be the guy that you can see turn it around, or is it a complete, this guy's just not got it at all?
Yeah, I don't think I said at the start, I just think he's got it at all, and I know I'm in the vast majority with that opinion. I would see it's interesting talking about the different types of managers, and the 3 of us have went for 3 different people, and they are all similar in terms of their aura, their presence, their leadership. There's a reason for that. That's because that mould suits Rangers. If you look at all the Walter, Aaron Cleese, Souness, Gerrard, all the more recent successful managers have all been of that build. Whereas I think Russell Martin, if we're comparing other managers, I'd say he's probably more like a Michael Beale or a Mark Warburton. Maybe a decent coach and good ideas about the game, but in terms of being a manager, and especially a manager of Rangers, is obviously another level for most other jobs. He's not suited for day one. We knew he wasn't going to suit. This is why we were all underwhelmed when he got the job. We all said this would happen, and it's happening.
Absolutely. And that is the challenge. You look at how many, I'm just looking at some of the names that people are putting out here. Van Nistelrooy is one of the names that somebody's put out. You've also got someone saying Nuno. I'm not quite sure who that was that they put in there. Others are saying potential Lampard could have been something that we could look at. There's loads of names that people are putting into the comments, which I think is really, really good. And I think when you look at these type of candidates, you question, how did the board come up with Russell Martin? How did we get to that stage with it? And I think that's probably the question. And I'm trying not to be disrespectful to the guy, right? I'm really not, because look, he done a good job at some of the clubs he's been at. But when you look at the names that are out there, and you look at the names that potentially could have come in, there is people who are more esteemed and people who would the Rangers support, I think, would hold in a better stance than Russell Martin at the moment. And I think Russell Martin, to be fair, hasn't done himself any favours with some of the comments he's come out with, and especially in the press of last weekend there. But yeah, I think it's just going to be interesting to see where the next week or so brings us, because I'd be astonished if we don't see a change on that one. So just on that then, John, come on back to yourself. Candidate number 2. What's your candidate number 2, and who do you think could potentially be in there?
So candidate number 2 is a little bit more left field and a bit more out there in terms of ambition, and that is Sergio Conceição, former Porto manager, recently of a short stint at AC Milan, but again a very, very successful manager. 11 trophies in 7 seasons at Porto, and I can't remember exactly, it's either the second most in Portugal or the second most in Porto of a single coach in terms of number of trophies. So very, very successful. Very adaptable as a coach. Favours a 4-4-2, so could go a little bit old school in terms of how it does that. 4-3-3 in some of the bigger games. So does have adaptability. Somebody who looks at what are the tools he has available and how does he best utilise them, so not stuck to a specific philosophy in terms of his formations. I also think depending on what the new owners are looking for, I will say this quietly, there are some similarities with what Russell Martin has maybe thought he was trying to do with what Conceição has actually done. A high backline, an aggressive press, ball retention, not giving it away just for the sake of it, but certainly looking at playing a 4-4-2 with a high press. So one of the things I think we suffer for is having a single striker and trying to trigger that press. There's one person then sitting doing doggies between centre halves, as opposed to two strikers there, two wide players pushing up, and all of a sudden that press becomes far more aggressive. And he's been in a pressure situation. He's been at Porto, big expectations, big personalities in there. If I remember, if I read rightly, he had a bit of an issue with Iker Casillas at the very start, and he had to bow down to a little bit of player pressure. So
that's right.
We're seeing with Rask and Conceição had to deal with that, but took the high road with it and went, right, I'm going to back down and I'm going to make this right. So it was put in terms of financially being a little unrealistic, to which my comment was, we've spent £8 million on a striker who scored no goals in 2 years, so we must have money to burn. So maybe it's something we can look at. So I think there's real positives there in terms of ambition for us to go after somebody like that.
Yeah.
Didn't go well at AC Milan, didn't have a good 6 months, won the Super Cup in his first game. I think he'd been in the country about 24 hours when he'd done that. Would take a bit more time to come in. But if the owners are looking at the longer term style that they want to implement, and they've seen something from Russell Martin's sales pitch, Conceição has something similar about him, but again has the trophies and the medals to back it up, that can sit and say, I've done that and I've won with this, as opposed to I've done it and not had that type of success. So yeah, it's a bit left field, is a bit something different, and he is available. He's not managing anyway just now. Options potentially for Turkey in the summer didn't happen, so would be available straight away.
And John, just on that one, I think it's a really good point you make. Obviously, if Rangers are letting Martin go and the coaching staff, you would imagine, goes with him. At that point, that comes at a pretty penny for the club. Previously, we'd have said the club couldn't afford it. I don't know if that's now the case. I think we could probably afford that and more just now with the owners we've got in. But is that something that you think is going to play a crucial part in the decision of the next Rangers manager, head coach, that it's someone's available without costing the money to come in with a backroom staff? Or do you think that doesn't come into the equation and actually it doesn't really matter if they're available or not, the club will pay the money out? What's your views on that one?
I'm hoping it doesn't matter. I fear what will happen is it's more going to be about who's known to them, who's known to Thelwell, who's known to Patrick Stewart. Something similar that we've seen with the signings, which is why somebody like Steven Gerrard is not outlandish to sit and think he could be in the job in the next couple of weeks quite quickly. I have a feeling that we need to start treating the manager appointment like we would a big transfer. So we've spent £8 million on a striker, but committed wages and things like that could be upwards of £15-16 million. Why do we constantly look for managers who are out of work? Why don't we sit and say this person is the right person for the job? And if we have to go and pay, Kevin Muscat, for instance, you need to pay £2-3 million potentially in compensation to get him. Why don't we do that? Why don't we take this is the manager we want, it's the most important person we're going to put in place at the football club. Pay the money, pay the transfer fee, pay the bigger wages, because we're kind of fishing around that free market and we're not getting the hits we need to. So go after the right person. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's a great name, John, and I think when you put the name in there, it was one I had to do a bit of background checking on. I didn't know much about him. He's not a name that stands out for me, but when you see the 11 trophies and 7 seasons at Porto, you see obviously what he's got under his belt at that point. And I think, it would be an absolute upgrade for me on Russell Martin at this moment in time. And if that was somebody that came in, I think it would be a big deal. When you look at some of the stuff he's done, it would be a really big deal. Is the costing going to be too much? Would the costing be okay? Someone put on saying a minute ago about potential up to $4 million a year for this guy. It could be. Is that $4 million a year well spent? I think it would be for a manager like this guy. So yeah, really good shout. I think it's a cracker in that one, John. So yeah.
So just to say that's kind of my point. If we look at Jamiti over the life of his contract and transfer fees might cost us £16 million, £4 million a season over that 4 years.
Yeah.
Can commit that to a player.
Mm-hmm.
Should not be thinking we can commit that to a manager.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Should be the most important guy at the club, right? And that's what it should be. If he's leading your team, he should be. So why not put the money out there for him, especially if you're putting £8 million on an untested 21-year-old at that point in time as well. So no, I take your point and some valid points on it. Really good, thank you. Richard, just before we come on to your second candidate, one thing I just wanted to pick up on the Sergio Conceição piece is the language barrier. He would be potentially another foreign coach. Foreign coaches we've not had great success with, other than obviously Dick Advocaat when he was here a few years back. Does the language barrier come into it? Is he adaptable enough, Sergio Conceição, at this moment in time? Would that be a concern to you? Obviously, looking at if you look at back before, you had Pedro Caixinha coming in there as well and didn't really hit the heights with the Rangers fans. Does this guy tick some boxes for yourself, Richard?
Not really, to be honest. I get points and stuff like that, and each to their own with their opinions. But I think one thing is Thelwell and Stewart has clearly underestimated our league and our club, and they can't afford to make another mistakes or another gamble. And I think a manager like that is a clear gamble that doesn't even know British football as a whole. So he probably will have no clue of any of our players whatsoever. And just because he's won stuff overseas, Portugal and whatever, look at the Man United manager. Not quite as winning, but he was sought after by clubs throughout Europe and is heavily struggling. Right? I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but I could see us falling into the same pitfalls. So I think out of all the managers we've said so far, I think that would be the biggest risk for many reasons. Just as I said, doesn't understand. Clearly, I would have no idea of, but our club, the background, our league, the footballers that we've currently got at our club that were signed from mostly British clubs. The language barrier, as you suggested, might play the style of football that the board want to see, but apparently so does Martin. So it's about the players that we've got in currently. Yeah, and I don't think. For me, I'd be concerned if he was appointed.
Yeah, I can see your points on it. I think, said with John there, when the name came up, it was one I had to look at. It didn't straight away come to my mind, but once I seen who he'd been with and things, you think to yourself, I actually know what, this is a good guy. But I think there's some other things there which would be, would he be adaptable to us straight away? I think we'd be back concerned. But look, I think everyone will have a difference of opinion on that one, because it's one that would probably split opinion, I think, on that one. So Richard, just on that then, just your second choice, who would be your second choice ahead of after your first one, if we didn't get that first one? And what would you be thinking is the next one coming into Rangers just now?
Well, if people hadn't turned off from when I said McInnes, they might do in the next one. And for me, it'd be Sean Dyche. All right. I know it was mentioned a couple of times, so not everybody's going to leave. But following on from what I said, I know it would really, really split opinion, but it'd be available straight away. Okay, we'd have an idea of the club, the history, what we're about, what the expectation is. It's quite strong defensively as a manager, organised, disciplined. Right? And I know straight away that everybody's going to say, oh yeah, he was always, just parking a bus and stuff like that. But he was never at clubs where he had the opportunity to... I'm not going to stop. Right? To have opportunity to express the team that he wanted to play. Right? He done well in the squad that he had at a tight budget, good man management, especially the players that he had. He didn't have stars, but he got the best out of them with what he had, and I think that's what he needs. He's a typical, British style manager in the sense of, and to be honest, one of the reasons why is I am sick of tippy tappy football. I don't want it anymore. Right? I want somebody that's just not. I'm going to say putting the ball up the park, but I want somebody that's going to be direct, and the objective is to win. Not worry about passes at the back. Not worry because the goalkeeper puts it rather than passing it to the right back. Right? I want somebody whose main aim is to win rather than worrying about dominating, having the most possession because, that's the way Pep plays and everybody wants to be like Pep. No, I want a manager that's going to come in and is going to win with the players and use what we've got for the best chances of us winning the game. And I think he would fit into that mould.
Mm-hmm.
I understand he's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. No, not every person's going to want that, but I think there's a lot of positives, and it ticks a few boxes for me.
Richard, I'm not going to lie here. I said Dyche is a name potential on Sunday, right? And I'm not going to lie. I done the school run on Monday morning, and someone who listens to the podcast and watches the podcast turned around and told me, "I hope you're never on that podcast again for giving the name of Sean Dyche." So all I'm going to say is that you're going to get it next. So there's going to be a petition out for Richard not to come on again if it's Sean Dyche is the name. But no, like I totally, Richard, I'll be honest, I seen the name Sean Dyche and I thought to myself, this is a guy who could make Rangers strong to beat. It wouldn't be pretty, there's no doubt about it. But would we take not being pretty to win games? I think we would at this moment in time. I think we would take somebody coming in and making us a strong team in order to start getting back to where we need to be. And it's all about just winning games. And whether it's pretty or not, we need to win games. And I think the point there at the bottom, managing in Scotland, he's mostly managed in the Premier League. Would he come to Scotland? I think if you offered him Rangers, he would jump at the chance. And I think he would come to Rangers because he knows how big a club we are. He sees there's opportunity for Europa League, Champions League every season there if he gets it right. Why wouldn't you come to Scotland? Would be my big thing, especially for one of the big two. I mean, that would be the question you'd be asking yourself. So I think you're right. I think Sean Dyche would be, it wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea right now, but he would be someone who would come in and do the job I think that we would probably need at this moment in time. So yeah, so if we see a petition, Richard, not to have you back in the podcast again because of that, then you know why. As I said, a couple's already said to me already. So hopefully we don't get canned off this one, mate. Fingers crossed.
Cheers for that, mate. Appreciate it.
Ross, just before we come on to your second candidate, mate, Sean Dyche, is that a name for you that you would be open to at all?
Yeah, I'm surprised at all the negative responses. I would absolutely take Sean Dyche. I think, like you say, it would make us hard to beat, i.e. Parquet, Europe. But I also think there's a myth surrounding him that his teams always play negative football. See, when he was managing Burnley in the Championship, his teams actually played really good stuff. They scored a lot of goals. They didn't concede very much. They were decent to watch. So I don't think it would be long ball, boring to watch stuff. There would be sometimes when required, but again, I think that can be a good thing. I think he could switch and show that pragmatism that's really lacking now, especially. So yeah, no, I would absolutely take him, and I agree with you. I think he would take it if offered.
I think so. I think all the candidates we've had tonight, is he the one I'd probably say is the most realistic out of us? I'll be honest, I can't see the board going back to Ferguson, not after dismissing so quickly the last time. Gerrard, we've got the challenges there. Conceição, potentially, you could look at that one as well. McInnes, has he got a good thing at Hearts at the moment? That's the one for me we're just not sure of. Sean Dyche, he could be the guy that Sunday knows, and we're actually thinking turn our nose up at him, but actually he could be the guy that they go for, and that could be the guy, especially in the fact that, I think, John, you said it earlier on, Thelwell might go back to who he knows. Thelwell knew Dyche. I think he's worked with Dyche as well before, if memory serves me correctly. Not for long. I think there was a crossover that wasn't too far, but that would be one, John, you think, in terms of that crossover piece that he might go back to Dyche for?
He may. I've got two concerns. He's lost more games of football than he's won in his career, and he's got a lower win percentage rate than Russell Martin does. Yeah. So I get that hard to beat, but if we look at the numbers, it doesn't actually transfer. He's it's not there, and that be my concern is. I get it. There's an old school British manager type to him, and I kind of get it. That said, the caveat to all of that's totally different than managing at Rangers. You're up against a completely different league type of club. So some of that just goes straight out the window. But that would just be my concern is, when you look to some of his stats, it was like that there's not this kind of big win rate that you're sitting going, yeah, you can see the progression and where he's went with it. That's just my concern. But I think he's a very realistic option in terms of Thelwell.
Absolutely.
Can I just jump in there, Chris, if you
Of
don't
course
mind?
you can, man. You go,
Briefly.
you go.
I completely get John's point, but we can't just keep looking at stats. Do you know what I mean? With what he's done previously at what clubs, it was different era, different budgets, different circumstances. You know, Walter Smith was an assistant manager, never coached a game before he started at Rangers. Gerrard had never been a manager. Alex McLeish, I dare to think what his win rate was like at both Motherwell and Hibs. Done well, but overall, what was his win rate like? It doesn't. That we can't take that into account. We've got to take in for the characteristics of the individual, who we think, and that is what we're seeing. If you look at everybody that we're saying we want next, it's the characteristics as an individual that we think is going to be best suited to our club. Yes, we need them to have the tactical nous, and I think probably Dyche perhaps does have that. He's just not been able to display it. That's what we need more. That's why Gerrard needed a coach like Michael Beale, okay, to help him with the tactics, because he didn't have that. But he had that aura and presence to be a manager. Same with Barry Ferguson. He had that presence, but he didn't have that tactical nous. That's why he brought in McCann and the likes. That's what we need, and I think that's why he's more suited than some of the others. And that's why, if you were asking me right now, would you rather have Sean Dyche in the dugout or Russell Martin on Saturday? You're taking Dyche all day long.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is for what I'm saying is you look at the context around it, and it doesn't necessarily track through. And if you say to me Monday,
and also
Dyche is coming in.
And also, finally, to Doug in the comments, friend of the pod, obviously going on about making us hard to beat. Stop worrying about hard to beat. Has he forgotten what happened in Bruges? We got absolutely pumped. So there's some games we actually do want to be hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. Totally agree. Ross, just before I come on to yourself, we are coming to the end, guys, so we're going to come on to Ross for the second one, then we'll get wrapped up, and we'll just summarise towards the end where we're at. Look, comments that are coming in are fantastic, guys. There are actually so many comments I can't keep up with half of them. I never go to click on one and bring it up, but it disappears, and before I know it, it's away. So keep the comments coming in, guys, because they're fantastic. Great to see so many people are interacting with it. There's loads of names in there. I'm not going to spoil anything, Ross. I'm going to come to yourself for your second candidate, and then we'll quickly after that look at some of the names that maybe we've not touched upon as a real quick one. So, Ross, coming to yourself, what would be your second candidate if you could to name it?
So, obviously, Gerrard was my realistic one. This one might be completely unrealistic, and I think even by saying that, if people can guess who it is, I would go for Jose Mourinho. But I appreciate that might be absolute fantasy stuff. But while he's not in a job, we should absolutely ask the question. The worst they could say is no. Again, track record everywhere he's been, except Spurs. That was Spurs. So he's won everywhere else he's been. Similar to Gerrard, would command respect instantly, would get a reaction instantly. The only issue, like I touched on there, the financial side, would it be complete fantasy?
I think, Ross, that's probably the question that everyone would say. And look, I was actually talking to some family and friends tonight, and one of the things we said was Mourinho. That's going to be that's the pie in the sky. When someone said to me, when I said the name Mourinho, I wouldn't like to say it's the pie in the sky, because you would think that Mourinho would want to take a big job like this. You would think that's something he would crave for. I think did you not get Ross? Keep you right in this. He got asked about this, didn't he, in his press conference when we played them, and he turned around and said, "Why not one day?" Obviously, he said his focus was on Fenerbahce at the time, but why not one day? I think was what he came back with, and I think it'd be a great shout. I think Jose Mourinho being manager. My only concern with Jose, if I can start the concern first, would be, you know what he's like with his temperament, right? How would he manage an Old Firm day when you've got everything on the line? Would that be box office, or would that be worse than what we actually need at this moment in time?
I think he would do box office, and to counter that, I think he would have the media, officials, rival supporters all on strings. I think he would do box office. Everybody would tune in his press conferences every week. Obviously, that's not the priority. The priority is, would he build a winning team? And I think he would, because he had 7 or 8 jobs, and 7 of them have been a success.
Yeah.
But again, it's just I think we were just talking about we were talking about how much do we prioritise the manager in terms of wages spent or fees for other clubs? That's another point. If we're not going to do that, then we can forget it, because he would command a big wage.
Absolutely, and I think, look, he's a guy who you would know would need to command that big wage because of what he brings to the club. I think he's a cracking name, and look, I can't remember. I'm trying to think for the life of me, guys, who it was. I think someone said in the press, it might have been Neil McCann. I think he said it in one of the interviews. I think it was maybe on one of the football programmes. And he said when he was over here recently, he was eyeing the place up. So he was looking about Ibrox and see what was going on. He could see obviously what the atmosphere was like that night. So he knows what Rangers are all about. He's been there, he's done it. Obviously Ferguson, who was my shout, has turned them over. So I would put Ferguson probably ahead of him on that one, for that one. But no, in all seriousness, I would turn around and say Jose for me would be absolute box office. My only concern with Jose at the moment would be, is he going to bring a negative side to the club that we don't really need at this moment in time, in terms of some of his antics, some of the comments he can come out with during press conferences and stuff. I think would he maybe be too, it's all about Jose Mourinho rather than it's about Rangers. That would be my thinking on that one. And Jordan, what would your thoughts be in terms of Jose? Is that a name that you think isn't pie in the sky and we could do it, or do you think it comes with too much baggage and too much sideshows?
It's a bit of the dream, isn't it? It's you'd love to see it. It doesn't feel realistic, in the slightest, which is a shame. But I think there's Jose Mourinho, and then there's the special one. There's the persona that goes beside it in terms of the special one who takes the media hits, who puts everything on him, and the manager who looks after his players and is a winner. Is just, never mind philosophies, never mind anything. We'll throw his granny under a bus to get a win. And that is the attitude that we all want, from a manager. I would love to see it happen. It will never happen. Well, my gut tells me it will never happen, and this is all a fantasy, but I'm willing to jump on that train until I'm told it definitely can't happen.
Absolutely, I'd be there with you as well. Richard, what would be your take on this one? Is this a too much hassle, or would they be the special one for Rangers and turn us back into the special team again?
Well, I doubt very much it's going to happen, but if you told me it would happen, I'd absolutely love it. Genuinely, I thought it'd be brilliant. It'd be entertaining. I'd be shouting, screaming. I'd be a Jose fan right from the off. Picture on the wall again, telling you, like I was back when I had my Chelsea poster up. But we've got one manager who's saying that the players are suffering from anxiety from the fans and stuff like that in the stadium. Bringing in somebody like Jose, he'll just turn it all around on him. Look at me.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the players. All right.
Yeah.
Look at me. It's all on me. So he'd take that immediately away from him. So on one hand, we've got one manager telling us one thing, and right now we're saying about worrying about one manager. Would it all be about him?
Yeah.
Well, right now our manager's telling us that's exactly what we need. We need to take it off the players because that's stopping them being able to play football. Jose Mourinho focus would all be on him, and I don't think it would be a bad appointment. I know his stars sort of dimmed, in recent years, and he's on the decline, which is why he's even been discussed on a Rangers podcast, to be quite frank. But there's probably still something there, left in the tank where he could probably maneuver tactically. He's got that experience over Brendan Rodgers and quite a lot of others in the league. So absolutely, I wouldn't see it as completely unlikely, signing, but I wouldn't be totally against it. I think there's a lot of potential in it. It could be an absolute disaster as well, by the way. But you know what I mean? But I could understand it, and I'd be quite hopeful, and I would absolutely love it.
We would have fun along the way, Richard, wouldn't we? I think that's whatever happened, you would have fun. It would bring a lot of entertainment to us, which would be great.
Straight away, Ibrox would be absolutely rammed. People would be watching Scottish football.
Yeah.
From all over the world just to see it. We'd be watching the press conferences. You know what I mean? More people watching the podcast as well, wondering what are they talking about with Mourinho.
Absolutely.
It'd be box office, be brilliant for Scottish football. And it would be brilliant to see, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I hear you on that one. Guys, as I said a few minutes ago, time is of the essence. I'm probably going to get my knuckles wrapped for how long we went over, so apologies on this one. look, I think the comments that are coming in, lots of comments, as I said, loads of really good names coming in. There is one, if I may, and I'm sure the guys won't mind me covering this off before we go. There's a name that continually is coming up in the comments at the moment that I keep seeing just now, and I'm really stunned by this name. I really am. I'm absolutely surprised by it. We talk about box office. This guy is probably the complete opposite of box office, and I would just want to take your thoughts on this one. And I'm just going to bring him up on screen at the moment. Stephen Robinson is a name that is flying up on the screen like nobody's business through the comments. Everyone keeps talking about it. And my view on this, we spoke about this on Sunday, my view on this one was I didn't think anyone would be considerate of Stephen Robinson. Now, that's bad probably on my part because I'm thinking, is that going to do any difference, right? But anytime we come up against this guy, we always have a difficult game against this guy. His teams are always set up really well. It's someone who I think would be really tough to break down, regardless of where you play, whether home or away. So just really quickly, guys, if I can, I'm going to come on to all three of you. John, yourself first of all. Stephen Robinson, is that a name you would have at Ibrox if he was the next manager?
It's not something I've ever really considered, to be honest. I think Richard's brought Derek McInnes to the table tonight, who I think seems the outstanding domestic candidate. So I wouldn't be totally against it. I think he definitely knows the league. He's worked in teams in terms of making them good tactically. Hard teams for us to break down, and came to Ibrox in one as well. So he's done well at Motherwell. So there's a previous. It's not just St Mirren. So it could work. It could work.
Absolutely, it's an interesting one for me. And as I said, some of the names I've seen on this, it was a name that continually kept coming up on the comments. So I thought we'd maybe need to touch on him. Richard, what's your thoughts on Stephen Robinson? Would that be a win for us, or would that be total opposite to Posey?
Definitely the total opposite, but I find it baffling because I've seen one individual in particular go on about Stephen Robinson. Yes, we should get him, but he absolutely shot me down with Derek McInnes. I was like, they're both in the same league and one's got more experience and outperforming the other and stuff like that. So, but you'd rather this one. So I don't get it. I don't see, particularly, other than he's done well the last couple of years, what it is Stephen Robinson exactly would bring, especially ahead of McInnes. I think he would struggle. He's been at smaller clubs. At least, I think going from a club like St Mirren to Rangers would be a huge, huge step. I would, if it did happen, I would obviously back him straight away, and I would love it to be another Scottish manager. But I think it would be too big a jump, to be honest.
Yeah. Fair play. Ross, give you the final word on Stephen Robinson. Would he be capable of taking the hot seat at Ibrox, do you think?
Yeah, I agree that I think it would be too big a jump. If he was to go to somebody like a Hearts or an Aberdeen and then do well there, then maybe it would be in a conversation. But for now, I would be underwhelmed. I think we should be even a wee bit higher. He has done a really, really, really good job with St Mirren, though. But I think, I agree with Richard at this stage. I think it would be. I think we should be even a wee bit higher. Not to say it would be one day, but right now, I think it's a wee bit soon.
Absolutely. Fair enough, guys. Well, look, that for me, some cracking candidates and there's some crazy candidates I think we got from the comments as well. And I think my Barry Ferguson didn't get down too well with too many comments as well. So, look, we went through the good, the bad, and the indifferent, I think, tonight. And I think, look, we are just sitting looking at this from afar. It's a tough job picking who the next manager of Rangers Football Club is going to be, and you've got millions of fans across the world deciding, is that the guy, is it not? We don't know the background. We're only guessing what's going on here, so you can see how tough it is already. Just trying to think of who the next ones could be. I really hope Kevin Thelwell is doing the job that he needs to do, and looking in the background of who that could be, because I think if Russell Martin was to go, having that interim would cause a bit of pain and between that. So it really needs to be someone coming in pretty quickly. But look, he's in the hot seat at the moment. It looks as if he's going to be in the hot seat for Saturday. Hopefully we can get the win on Saturday, or some people's views on this is maybe not get the win on Saturday. You know, I know just depending on the situation with this guy. look, it's a tough one, but the ultimate thing is we all want to see Rangers do well, don't we? And I think that's the thing, and it doesn't really matter who's in the hot seat as long as Rangers are winning. I think that's the main thing for us at the moment. But look, guys, great discussion. Thank you for all your input. Thank you to the guys behind the scenes who brought together all the stats and make all this look fantastic, because without you guys, we couldn't do this. John, thank you for your time. Great to be on with you tonight, mate. Hopefully Saturday we get a good performance and a good win on Saturday and make us all feel a little bit better.
Yeah, pleasure being on. Brilliant chat, guys. Really enjoyed this one tonight.
Thanks, John. Richard.
Cheers. Thanks for setting me up for my final ever show, Chris. You know, if I'm going to get chucked for bringing up Sean Dyche. But appreciate it. It's been a good one.
I'll be joining you in that one, Richard, probably as well, mate. So don't worry. We're all good. Ross, thank you, mate. Great to be on with you. Hoping for Saturday we get a better result, and we'll see you next week at some point. And we're all in a good mood. Do you think?
Yeah, no, here's hoping for a better result on Saturday. But no, thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, it's been great to have you guys. It really has. Look, to everyone who's been viewing, we've been on for quite a while, guys. Some of the comments have been fantastic. Please obviously like and subscribe, guys. There's lots to come still on the channel over the course of the week. Lots more videos between now and the weekend. We've obviously got the game on Saturday that we're all gearing up to. Obviously, we'll keep an eye out in the news in case anything happens between now and then. If anything does, you'll hear it obviously on the Rangers Journal, on all our pages. Just want to say thanks again to three gentlemen for joining me tonight. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I would just like to say to everyone, just remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night.